What is up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? My name is Oxtane, and I want to start out this video basically saying that this is going to be the first of two videos, essentially. Not entirely related, but my next video will be focused more on the evolution of WoW and how the player base and their opinions and forum posts or whatever else has shaped the changing of WoW. Whereas this video is more about how Blizzard themselves have changed their identity through the years and how they've changed their approach to WoW. And there's three main topics I want to cover throughout the course of this video, or not necessarily cover, but focus on, and things that I think are very important. So number one is game features. And the reasons behind the creation of those, and then third, thought process behind content difficulty, or everybody's favorite word, accessibility. So throughout this video, I'm going to be using some clips from old BlizzCons and current BlizzCons and kind of see the difference in approach. And it's fairly obvious to a lot of people where this will be going, but let's just go ahead and start back at 2005 BlizzCon. So a lot of people have seen this video of Jeff Kaplan talking about the raid philosophy and everything. And there's a bunch of different ones. There's a dungeon one, there's a class design one. But mostly for this one, I'm going to be focusing on the raid at end game panel. A lot of people have seen this video, but it has some very, very good points that I feel like are very, very relevant to cover in understanding how Blizzard looked at the game then versus how they look at the game now. I'm going to go ahead and play a clip here of old Jeffy boy at the 2005 BlizzCon panel, and I just want you to listen to what he says here.
So let's talk about endgame content and why that is important. We don't have experience loss in World of Warcraft. We also have to give players something to aspire to. There's a lot to be said for that moment when you're sitting in Orgrimmar as a newbie and somebody runs through in like all raid gear and you're like, wow, that guy must be so powerful. Or eBay or something.
Now this is a big point that I want to touch on in this video, is something to aspire to. Now obviously nostalgia plays a big role in a lot of the way that we look at Burning Crusade or Classic, but there's no denying that there was a certain level of achievement in a lot of raid tiers, and whether you were a Molten Core raider or a BWL raider or an AQ40 raider or a Nax raider, there were levels to aspire to get to, and it wasn't as simple as just let me focus on this tier, and then once the next tier comes out, you know, everything suddenly becomes irrelevant before that point. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but again, tying into this point, let's go ahead and take a look at our next clip here.
So anyway, the world feels a lot bigger for everyone if there's unbeaten content out there. Even if you're the guy who's like level 30 doing a Wrathy Highlands quest, but you know that the resident Uber guild of your servers, you know, trying to kill Nefarian, it creates an epic feel for the whole world.
Now, to me, not only does this point have a lot of relevance in terms of this topic, but also in terms of accessibility. And what I mentioned before, where once BOD comes out in BFA, Uldir is no longer relevant. It makes the game so much smaller. Even if there's an equal amount or seemingly more content endgame than there was in Vanilla WoW, it doesn't feel like it because of these tiers out gearing each other. The fact that I can get normal Uldir gear by doing a heroic dungeon. And there are certain perks to scaling up gear over the course of an expansion, but you also lose sight of a lot of content. And Blizzard's been one in the past to express, you know, the fact that they don't like people not being able to do their content or not getting the full use out of their content that they create, but that's exactly what they do when they allow an entire raid tier to just get completely swept. And you see this again, the whole mantra of, not only did it make the world feel a lot bigger, that, okay, and maybe not even in the sense that Jeff used where I'm leveling and I know a top guild's progressing on BWL or whatever, but if I'm in a Molten Core guild and knowing that there's guilds out there progressing in AQ or BWL or Nax or whatever, that I can still aspire to get to that level. And it still makes it feel bigger. And even if MC's been out for, a year plus and the new raids are out, it makes the game feel a lot bigger, because, okay, well, once I finish Molten Core, then I can move on to BWL, and then I can move on to AQ. So you always have something to do. And there's a really good point that comes up by Jeff later in this presentation that is really key to this. And I'll mention that in a bit. Now, as I bring up this problem of these raid tiers being, irrelevant after a new raid tier comes out, there's actually a point coming up here in this clip that I'm about to show you that pretty much exemplifies Blizzard at this time being totally against what modern WoW's system looks like. Take a look.
How come there aren't any low-level raids? If you ever want to raid something at low level, you could just try something that's higher level, but there's no real point to us creating this raid content that's going to be trivialized by levels anyway.
Now, you hear that? Sounds an awful lot like our current system. Now, obviously, leveling rating would be a lot different because everybody goes at a different pace, and then obviously the bracket of like 3 to 4 month raid tiers that we have now would be a lot shorter relatively if you were leveling. But it's the same principle. It's just a different timetable, where the amount of time development wise that you were sinking into these large scale encounters and instances, it's not being met with that same amount of time that's being dedicated. Like, people were still killing Rag and MC and Onyxia, like, right up until Burning Crusade came out. Like, just because either guilds were progressing because they were bad or behind or whatever, or just for fun. And that's a lot of the element of the game that's been missed out on now, is just doing things because they're fun. There has to be some kind of external reward system, and that's fine. Like, gear has always been your paycheck in WoW, or however you want to look at it, and that's fine. But there are things generally outside of that that I can just enjoy doing. Like, hey, I have some new guild members that just started playing WoW. Hey, let's carry them through MC and BWL because, we have AQ gear and those raids are easy and we've done those months ago, like, that would be fun, that experience that you had back in the day, where Blizzard still tries to do that, where they try to get more experienced players into lower level content. But instead of me doing a +10 Shrine of the Storm, I'm doing a +2 Shrine of the Storm or I'm doing a normal BOD instead of mythic BOD, rather than instead of me doing mythic BOD, I'm doing a heroic Uldir. Like, it's just something different. It makes the game a lot bigger. And, if I could do alts even and go through Uldir, like, it's just a lot more fun and enjoyable, and using that content and really utilizing that. And again, that's what Jeff's talking about in that clip, is why would we develop all these time and resources, into developing these new raids just to have them just immediately be irrelevant? And that's what happens in WoW now. So you can see the loss of identity just there alone. Now, I do want to transition into accessibility. Now, before I touch on this, again, let's go into another clip immediately after this, where Jeff talks about basically people that don't want to raid or don't have time to raid. And just watch the clip, and I'll get into it.
I'll never raid. Why should I care about raid content in World of Warcraft? Well, we hear this all the time, and then people end up contradicting themselves. They actually end up raiding. So a lot of people say, I'll never, that's not something that I'll ever do, and then they'll get into that like one Zul'Garub raid and go, that was so much fun, I got this awesome item, it's actually something I want to do.
So again, the whole point of it's fine if you play WoW and you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to something, and maybe you just don't even want to raid, but then you get into it and then you're like, wow, this is actually awesome. And if everything is handed to you on a platter and there's no sense of, wow, I wonder what this raid is like, it takes away a lot of the excitement. And again, going back to the previous topic, when you just have the same content on like so many different difficulties, instead of just doing different contents at different levels, it makes the game a lot more stale and makes everything run out a lot sooner, which is why even if WoW has more content nowadays than it did back in BC or that it did back in Wrath of the Lich King, just from a pure like look at all the shit that's in the game standpoint, it really feels a lot worse and feels like there's nothing ever to do, because my options are do Mythic Plus or do BOD, and that's pretty much it, outside of PvP, obviously, which is kind of, again, just doing the same thing over and over again, just at a higher level. And WoW's always been repetitive, sure, but again, when you make the game bigger and really take advantage of all the different features and tiers that you've put into the game, you don't have to resort to shit to keep people playing, like artificially extending playtime, like, hey, let's delay the content of Warfronts or the new raid, because people are fucking catching up. And realistically, in the past, if, okay, day one, if a raid hit with a patch, maybe not everyone would immediately go into it because not everyone was ready, and people still wanted to go do the other raid to finish gearing. That also makes everything last a lot longer. Now, I want you to take a look at this. Now, this screenshot from this Q&A panel really shows what I'm talking about. They show the stats even. I mean, in their case, it's to show that it's more than just 1% of the player base doing the raids, but see how everything is divvied up and how many different people are doing these different raids. And this is every single day at the peak hours in the US. So that's not even counting EU and everything else. So 500 different Molten Cores, 150 Onyxias, 250 BWLs, 700 ZGs. Like, and then the weekend, it's even more. So when you really factor everything together, again, it goes back to extending the game in a fun, interesting way, and not just doing it through, oh, I hope I get this Titan Forge, or oh, I hope, wow, Warfronts come out in a week and I can actually do those, instead of just, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not a good system in comparison. And I know it's generic and people get tired of the old classic was better and this and this and this. Like, it's rose-colored glasses at a certain point. Like, yeah, not everything was perfect, obviously. And there are a lot of things about modern WoW that I prefer over classic WoW, and a lot of things that a lot of other people prefer. But at the end of the day, it's not always as black and white as people think it is, and that's part of the next video that I'm going to do. Is, again, the players have an equal hand in changing the game over the years that Blizzard does, and there's so much at play over the years, and it's such a progression from expansion to expansion that it's not always easy to pinpoint the problems and everything like that. I know I got a little sidetracked there for a bit, but I felt like that screenshot was really important. So I want to wrap this up with this clip from Jeff that I mentioned earlier, which is, again, ties into all the points that I've stated in this video, which is that they want people to keep busy with stuff, and those numbers and all the different instance lockouts and everything every day really emphasize this point. But go ahead and watch this clip.
Our goal is to have enough content to keep a full-time raiding guild busy each night of the week for a week. For the expansion, we want to deliver a menu of raid content. Kind of the way that raid content has worked out so far in WoW has been very linear, and we feel like this causes a lot of problems.
All right, again, so I want to touch on this point right here. All three of these points are exact opposites of the approach of WoW now and how it's lost its identity as a game and its progression end game as a whole. And what I touched on before, and this is exactly how Blizzard looked at it back then, so I'm not fucking crazy, okay? And a lot of people still look at it this way, is a menu of raid content, which means, hey, let's go do MC, let's go do AQ, let's go do ZG, let's break into smaller groups and do ZG or AQ20, rather than feel pigeonholed, this is in Blizzard's terms, rather than feel pigeonholed into a particular raid or encounter. Linear raid progression causes a lot of problems. Those two sentences right there is literally BFA and modern WoW's problems. Is even if Legion and other expansions improved upon a lot and added a lot of good things like Mythic Plus and other things, the core structural problem with WoW now is that there's only one progression. It's BOD or bust. You can't do Uldir anymore for progression or fun. You can't do, anything else. It's BOD and Mythic Plus and PvP, and that's it. And then when BOD becomes irrelevant, guess what? There's no point in doing that either. Again, unless it's achievements, unless it's other things, but that's not enough to engage a player base. And this is why you see Blizzard time gating content, delaying releases of raids, or delaying content for seemingly no reason, like the Mage Tower in Legion, or the contribution of the Warfront in BFA, things like that just don't make any fucking sense and only make people angrier. So, to tie all of this up, I want to say that, again, there's a second part coming to this video that touches more on the player's influence over things of the years. And I know I didn't even touch things like Titan forging and everything else. And my quick thoughts on that is it's still against the philosophy that they had back in 2005 or even throughout Burning Crusade, where the progression fits the reward. And it all ties into the same system. So Titan forging is just as much of a problem as anything else. And maybe there would be some kind of nice middle ground reached where, it only goes 5-10 item levels, whatever. But like right now, it's obvious that the Blizzard team now and the Blizzard team then are just completely different entities. And it's been said for a long time, like vanilla WoW, I've said, is a completely different game than modern WoW. And that's 100% true. And in the philosophies of the team, it's pretty clear. So again, I'll touch on some additional topics. I'd love to hear feedback. Either leave a comment in the comment section down below, or please go follow me on Twitter and Twitch. I stream just about every day and really trying to engage more people. So definitely check me out on Twitch and follow me on Twitter as well. If you ever want to reach me, I try to be as interactive. Join my Discord as well. Link for that will also be in the description. Really trying to build a good community, so I really appreciate all the feedback, and let me know what you thought and what you want to see covered in the follow-up to this. Again, it's more about player progression, but I can still touch on some additional things that maybe you guys wish I would in this video, so definitely let me know, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. It was fun to do some more research, and again, Probably have some more hands-on examples, really going balls deep with part 2, because I feel like more of the fault is on the player base than Blizzard. So that's going to be the video that has more focal point and a lot more research done in it. But I felt like this Q&A video that, again, is pretty well known, this panel from 2005, I felt like really, when you break it down, pretty much exemplifies the opposite of everything that modern WoW is. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please follow me on all the things. Again, as I said, really appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next one.